And how's it going, everybody? Welcome to BZB TV Live. We are coming at you in the new year. I hope you guys had a really great end of your guys' 2022. I really hope you guys had a fun and family-filled holiday season. But it is now 2023, and we are kicking things off with a bang. Today, we're going to be talking about women in tech, and more importantly, we have a fantastic guest today joining us. So joining us today, we have Alesia Hendley. From Audinate. She currently holds the position of business development representative at Audinate, as well as being an accomplished multimedia journalist. But she's worn many hats over the years. She started her career in the AV industry in the church field, and then moved on to being an AV operator at a multi-purpose facility. And from there, she started blogging and talking on social media about AV tech, and that's what led to her forming her own brand, The Smooth Factor. And as such, she's become quite the name in the AV space, being recognized by Pro AV on the global most influential list, as well as several other accolades. But I think that's enough for me telling you about how awesome she is. Let's go ahead and get her in here. And how are you guys doing today?
Hey, well, Matt. How you doing, Matt?
Doing great. Thanks for asking. So, Alesia, we just got finished kind of talking you up here. So, anything you want to add to that? Anything that I missed?
It was great. It was perfect. It was a good way to kind of start the conversation, give people a little bit of the, background of where I come from. So it's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, you certainly seem to have earned it. So you do some fantastic work out there, and we are really appreciative of this opportunity to kind of pick your brain, especially on this topic that, myself or Matthew, we might not really think that much about because we don't really have to deal with it.
Because you're guys. Yeah, go ahead, say it. Because you're guys. It's okay.
Yeah. So just to kind of kick it all off, you said that you got your start in the AV industry working in the church field. Specifically, I think you said your dad's church, correct?
Yes. Yep. My dad's a pastor. He was a sound guy before that. And once he realized he was going to step up into leadership, somebody had to take over. So at about 12, I was interested in all those twisty knobs and what does this do? And, I've always liked to play my music loud. So I was all in on it.
I can definitely understand that. I've worn that hat a few times, being the AV guy at a church. Actually, before I left to come out here in Texas, that was what I was doing on the side, as well as working with BZBGEAR, was being a videographer for a church. So it can be a little bit of an interesting environment, especially with how you have to work with volunteers and everything. So I'm assuming you had to do a lot of that, right?
Yes, I felt like I was always in a state of consulting, right? My dad and I, when we would hit the road or when other guest churches would come to our church, they would be amazed by what we were doing. And we started taking those tips and tricks and bringing them to other churches, training up their volunteer staff, and just keeping this consistent role of education pretty much. And that's how it all started.
Right. And that's kind of a good thing to talk about, because when you're in that kind of a situation, there's a lot of things that you, not only are you sharing with others, but you kind of pick up along the way as well. And I think that, do you think that kind of impacted your ability to go from the church sector into like the private sector?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all start somewhere, but when you can get in those volunteer roles, it kind of gives you the grace to learn. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as serious as a live produced event. Well, not at least when you're in a volunteer role, right? Whoever that head sound person is, it's always real deal, real type of deal with those people because we're in charge. We're the ones getting paid for it. So it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
But in any case, my headphones are doing something weird here. So let me do this. But in any case, it was all about, learning and growing in those moments and keeping up with the technology that was able to not only grow with me as an individual, but grow with our congregation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and move on from the church sector. You were doing the AV there, and then you moved into a multi-purpose facility as the AV operator. So what did all that entail?
Yeah, so there was kind of this transition between House of Worship and to being an in-house full-time engineer, right? Because kind of House of Worship is kind of like gig mentality, right? You go Sunday, you hit one church, you hit another church, or you do your main church, whatever that looks like. And in between this transition, I found myself of trying to find a job. So I got on Craigslist at that time. Craigslist was the thing, right? I'm typing in
Mhm.
audio engineering, like what can I do outside of studio work and just churches. And then that's when I found like the pro space. And my first touch point with pro was the hotel sector. But that got old very quickly. Living in Houston, Texas, driving from all these different hotels, loading and loading out, it was like, okay, I need to get someplace where I can, get settled, but also be doing the same things. And that was kind of the transition into the multi-purpose facility because it was a venue, but they had in-house people, right? We weren't hiring out and subcontracting. There was a full team of us, full-time team, and we had a lot of part-timers as well that were coming in and learning the trade that we could also train up. So once I got into that multi-purpose facility, it was game on because this space it was owned by a high school, like a school
Mhm.
district, but it had a stadium, a conference center, an arena, and a theater. All of this was all on one campground. So that I think there was 8 of us that were full time, and we were running these spaces all day, every day, sun up, sundown. And different school districts would come in and do the Nutcracker. I did Christmas time would come, I would do like 16 nutcrackers, dude. It was crazy, right? And
Yeah.
then, for football season, high school football in Texas is I don't
Yeah,
know,
Huge.
it might as well be
religion.
NFL. Yeah, you're getting on
Yeah, it's
ESPN.
absolutely huge.
You got ESPN trucks pulling up and you're having to get them set up, and it was really really fun. And I loved what I did there, right? Being behind the boards, designing light sets, running and directing football, camera up, running front of house.
Mhm.
It was just something new every day under this one roof. And it was great. It was great being a part of that. But I hit a cap. So that's kind of how that next transition happened.
Right. So, since you got to do kind of a whole lot of
Yep.
everything when you were there, did you have a
Ooh,
favorite event?
favorite event. Honestly, we had this event called Salute to the Stars. And because it was owned by a school district, there was this huge event where all the schools came together and they were celebrating all of the teachers. And it was this big deal. One teacher would win a car at the end of it. Like it was this full blown thing. But we would transform the arena into just like this big gala event. And we would have our digital signage all, configured in different ways outside of your 19 by, your 6 by 19 kind of deal.
Mhm.
It was awesome. We got to do some creative things with lighting. Uh, and we got to do some cool things with content too. So it was one of my favorite events just because it took us out of our norm, kind of like the cookie cutter projector microphone. It gave us that freedom to really light up a space that could be dead and dull because it was concrete,
Right.
right? It's just a
Yeah.
concrete traditional arena with your stairs coming and seats coming out. So we were really able to transform that space with the technology we had. And man, we had a lot of technology because if you don't use that funding, you lose it. So we
Yeah.
would just have all these amazing latest and greatest type of technology. And yeah, it was time of my life. I hated having to, break down and set up for something else the next day, right? Because we would be there all night. But it's part of the game, right? It's part of what
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
We all feel that pain.
Yeah,
I definitely
exactly.
feel that because I had the blessing, going through school to do videography and everything, and we had the opportunity to work live sports broadcasts at our
Mm,
college, and those were rebroadcast on ESPN. So that was a little bit of a hassle, especially in the setup and teardown,
yep.
but it was
What?
definitely
So
worth it.
what did you go to school for? If you don't mind me asking, what was your degree in?
My degree was bachelor's of science, video production.
Oh, video
So it
production.
was,
Awesome.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it was communication. It was under the communications. I don't remember the exact verbiage that they use for it, but it's bachelor's of science, video production.
Yeah, I asked that because I feel like sometimes in our industry, your degree or the knowledge set you have could be a barrier into the industry,
Mhm.
especially for women, right? If we don't know that this industry exists, how are we, unless we're into video or photography or computer science or something, there's really not a level or a person like me. I went to trade school. So when you start getting into the field, there comes this balance kind of like and or degree or experience Where does that level
Right.
out? You know, where does that level out? So that's why I was
Right.
asking.
Yeah, and it
Just
is
a little
interesting because
curious.
in this field, it's very experience driven,
Yeah.
right? So experience is huge, but they also want the degree. So it's
Yep.
like, where do you strike that balance?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. You kind of mentioned that you hit a little bit of a cap with
Yeah.
that venue. So what did you do after that? I know you
Yeah.
started doing a little bit of blogging and stuff, but is this where you led into that, or was there something in between there?
This is where it started really for me. When I realized I hit a pay. When I say cap, I hit a pay cap. Right. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
gonna make any more than I was making. That was it. And I wasn't gonna be my boss in like the next 10, 15 years. So I was like, what can I do next? What, way can I take this technical knowledge that I have and apply it somewhere else, but not drift away completely from the industry? And I had to have a hard conversation with myself because I love running the boards, right? I love being in all blacks, loading ins, loading out, running a show, creating that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to sit down with myself and say, hey, would you be okay not creating that experience, not running front of house? And after that long, hard search with myself, I was like, all right, if I'm not doing that, how am I going to be involved with audio? Because it all started with audio for me, even though the more I learned the other aspects, I grew, but it's always been about audio. So I looked at companies that sell audio, like, oh, we love these companies that we use on a regular. How can I get involved and start working with those companies and possibly land at one of those companies? So as I was applying for these jobs I didn't really qualify for, I was like, I'm going to start blogging about what I'm doing here so I can showcase my expertise and my experience because I didn't have the degree. So that's where the transition kind of took place. I got a little bit more strategic, started going to events like Infocom and, Exertus Alamo's E4 shows, and just started putting myself out there, and then it led me to the manufacturer side of our business.
Okay, so seems like a little bit of a grind.
Oh yeah, we're grinding all the time, Matt.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely seems
Rise and
like it.
grind.
So I might be speaking a little bit out of my field here, but
Yep.
just from some of the things that I've consumed on YouTube, just learning some psychology and things, I know that it can be really difficult kind of getting into the mindset to push for some of that stuff. Like, okay, I've hit a pay cap. I need to push into maybe asking for more money, or maybe I need to start exploring other options. Do you have any advice for women in the industry regarding that? Because I know, like, even as men, it's hard for us to do sometimes,
Mhm.
trying to work up the courage to maybe even think about doing stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way to do it is what I started doing was taking track. Like I had a spreadsheet of everything I was doing on a daily, and then I was researching jobs as far as job descriptions, and I was basically putting those together, right? And then I would go to my boss and say, "Hey, I've done this, this, and this over the year within my review. Can I get, can I get my $1.50 or no?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But at that point in time, when I asked, yeah, that was it for me. I couldn't, because of the school district and rules and positions and titles, right? HR is tricky sometimes the way companies are laid out. So first know what your company is expecting from an HR perspective if you want to go to the next level or go to a different position within a company. And then if you realize like, hey, all right, I've hit my cap here. What can I do next? Start thinking about those dream jobs, right? Those dream companies you want to be a part of, or those dream projects you want to be a part of. And then basing your value of where you want it to be or what you asked your boss for, but they wouldn't give you. Because obviously you've put in the work. When you go to the next level, make sure the pay is balanced.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
makes sense.
So, how did you really get the whole blogging and the smooth factor to take off?
That's a big question. Like,
Everyone wants to know the secret to success on that front, but it's really hard to pinpoint.
honestly, things started taking off when I became comfortable embracing all the pieces of me that are different about this industry, right? Like,
Mhm.
I stand out in a room with this hair, like, especially at Infocom. You see me coming very like so I started embracing not only the technical aspects of my career, but I started embracing my soft skills as well, like not being afraid to network, not being afraid to put myself out there and introduce myself and embrace that I am all of these weird things under diversity, right? Because I used to steer away from it. It seemed like this industry didn't want people who were in any form that looked like me or had things that you can't see that are diverse. But when I started embracing that, I realized that the industry embraced me as well. So I feel like women in tech, we can't, shy away. I've heard a lot of women say they're intimidated when they walk into a room with, full of men. Blogging and creating my own brand actually is what helped me stand out and grow my career. So I think it all started with being me and then spinning it up into all the technology, showing people, hey, yeah, I'm fun. I'm going to be dancing, right? But I'm also going to tell you exactly how all this gear works as well. Like, don't undermine me. I'm not a booth babe. I can do both. Um, so basically, growing the brand was being a little bit of a mixture of being like owning and being true to who I am, mixing it with some fun because I feel like our industry could be kind of stale at times, and then
Absolutely.
also blending in that technical chops with it. And it was like, okay, who's this lady? Like, who is this?
Mhm.
And here we are. Now everybody knows the smooth factor. And if you don't, I have a sticker sheet for you. I have a column in Commercial Integrator you can read. I'm all over the socials. So I think just building that brand up ultimately helped me put myself into rooms that I wasn't able to be a part of yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
got a question for you, Alicia.
Yeah.
When it comes to women in tech, do you think it's a bigger hurdle to get more women into the industry, or is it a bigger hurdle to keep them in once they're in?
I think it's a bigger hurdle to keep actually retaining, right? Because mostly the touch point into the industry is that grunt work, right? The
Right.
load ins, the load outs. It's not like you're going to get into this industry and start in a 9 to 5 role, no weekends. Like, that's very unlikely. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but you have to show that level of growth. So, keeping us is the thing. And I think a lot of that is into the pay gap. How do you keep women, right? And then if you do enter in the industry on that kind of 9 to 5 corporate level, then 9 times out of 10 you see that in a marketing, not necessarily sales or a technical role or a design engineer, right?
Right.
So at this point, I think it's keeping us here. Don't get me wrong, it's a on the other side of it, that's still a challenge too, right? How do we get more women? Because you don't
Absolutely.
know what you don't know, right? And if you don't
Right.
know the industry exists, then you're never going to find us. We all
Mhm.
stumble into this space. And like I said, either you're into like video, photos, right? Some form of technology that lands you here. So I think it's on all of us, not just our industry like shows and organizations. It's on all of us to spread this word about our industry and tell our story better of what we do because AV is everywhere. Just
Agreed.
the average person doesn't know that that's AV.
Right. Do you think
It's
there's more
definitely
women
true.
on the audio side versus the video side currently? Because in my experience, it seems like the audio side, and this is probably really predicated on the Dante shows that we've done.
Mm.
There seems to be a lot more women involved in the audio side of our industry than the video side.
I do believe that, and I have to give it up to my sound girls. That's that's just what That's kind of how we stumble into it. But when you look at film outside of AV, or look at video outside of AV, it's mostly like filming, directing, right? But now the game has changed. You know why? Because content creation is a vertical now, in my opinion, right? It's a business. And women that are interested in content creation, they have to know the gear. They can't not know what, cameras or microphones, right? They're starting to get into it. And I
Right.
think that's also another way to stumble into it. But I agree with you. Most of us do start on the audio side, but the game is changing. We need video for everything we do since the pandemic. There's no
Well,
way around it.
yeah, exactly. And I think the way that you have worked your career in this is probably the way I've seen most women in technology go. My background's a degree in computer technology. I was a network administrator for many years, so I've been in tech for well, longer than I'd like to say on camera.
Come on, let us know.
You know, it's been like 30 years, you know, that I've been dealing with technology. And over that time, you know, I definitely see more women in the industry in the AV world, but that also could be due to the fact that I'm newer to the AV world than I am in technology in general.
Yeah.
You know, 30 years ago, there wasn't any women that I worked with on our tech side. And I know that, you know, when they tried to get in, and I hate to say it, but it was almost like a wall was formed around keeping them out, like the, you know, the boys club kind of thing. And it seems like that changed a little bit. But there still seems to be just these really egregious, unnecessary barriers that keep being built to getting the women in. Because it's hard to keep women in an industry that we can't get them into the industry. You know,
exactly.
It's really that thing. And so the way that you've done it, where you've created your brand, where you've gone out and, like you said, you know, you can create content from home. And if you're good at creating content, whether you're at home, in your bathroom, in your office, or wherever you are, it's going to get out there. And so I think that opportunity, at least in that regards, is opening up more for women in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Women, we have to, in a technical role, we have to know double or triple as much as you do. You guys do, right? We have to be able to show that. we have to be able to do that right off the bat. We have to be able to talk those technical chops. And then also, when we come into the space, we also have to know all the good old boys.
Right.
That was kind of my strategy. It was like, all right, who's the gatekeepers? Not saying I targeted them, but I was strategic on building relationships with those people so they would get to know me for me. And then those walls come down a little bit more, but it is definitely still something that happens today. And at InfoComm last year, they threw out a stat of how much the percentage has grown of women at InfoComm from 10 years ago. And I believe it was only like, it was not a huge, you know, leap in numbers. And I was like, well, what do we have to do to see this grow more and more over the years to where that number in 10 years from now is at 25%, you know, 30%. And we've got a lot of work to do. But we need the guys to back us.
Yeah. Well, do you think if the industry started to do more, and I'm not a huge fan of the whole, you know, let's make this a man event, make this a woman event, but do you think it would help in our industry if we did more women-focused events?
See, that's a tough one. And I've had debates with my girls on this, right? Because the women events have a different vibe than the men events, right? And when you walk into a women's event, it's kind of weird. Honestly, like I feel more comfortable in a room. I feel more comfortable in the room full of men than honestly when I walk into, say, the women's events and it's all women, right? You would think we would all gravitate to each other, but something weird happens there, and I think that's why it doesn't need to be separated. Why can't we host an event, right, that might be for women, but men come too? Like we can't put up a barrier around you guys and say, no, this is the women's event, don't come in. And I don't think we publicly say that, but I think guys feel that way. Oh, it's a women's event, I'm not going to go to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. You know, but a lot of men are you know, uncomfortable in a room filled with women for whatever reason that is, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an intimidation factor or what, but you know, when we're around other men, there's a comfortability that comes with that. And maybe it's the same for women when they're in a room full of women. You know, maybe it's all intimidation. Yeah, I've heard women say that they're intimidated to do things, you know, and I never thought that maybe men feel intimidated in a room full of women, right? I don't know. But we have to engage in these conversations and actually showcase these type of events to create the change. Agreed. What we're doing right now is just having a vortex of conversations and nothing is changing. So what I've been actively doing is finding women that are in the space, getting on LinkedIn, you know, actively doing the outreach to find people, women of color, younger women, older women, you know, young men, old men, whatever the case is. Like I am just actively doing outreach to connect with people in our industry and then connect everybody with everybody. Yeah. I've watched you work and to watch you connect with people and the way you connect people. It's amazing. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I've ever seen you approach someone and have them not turn around and respond to you with every piece of their positive energy. And you just, you know, you bring that out to people. You talk about your hair, but I think when you walk into a room, what people recognize is the energy that you bring. Like you can literally feel it, you know. I think the hair is a great second place attraction, you know what I mean? But the energy you always bring to everything that you're at is just amazing. And I'd love to see more of that. And I don't know if it's it's absolutely a part of just who you are personally.
Yeah.
But it's how do we get more people to jump in with that same type of exuberance and open energy and positivity?
Yeah, we just need more energy. Like, we need more livelihood. And I mean, in my first piece in Commercial Integrator, I talked about you all's videos. Like, if you want to get into this industry, go to BZBGEAR. Like, look at these videos. They're not just dull, they're interesting. They're doing gear reviews, like, you guys were on the YouTube trend before it was a thing. And it's like, we just need more lively, fresh energy. And I don't even say like fresh as in an age gap kind of thing. Like, just come and be your authentic self and let's have some fun. And maybe we'll attract more people, because good energy attracts good energy. That's you and me, Matthew. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in the same vein of kind of like bringing more energy into the space, and kind of jumping back a little bit in terms of like content creation and everything, since you mentioned it, and content creation is really huge.
Yeah.
This might be hitting on the same vein as Matthew when he asks like if there should be women events and whatnot. Is there something that we're missing? Like not us specifically, but just in general as an AV field. I mean, it definitely could also apply, but just generally as an AV field, when we're doing content creation, is there maybe an aspect that we need to approach it from to entice more women into the field?
I mean, yeah. I mean, with content now, like even my content, if you go into my analytics and look, like it's still mostly men. This is a technical field that has just always been mostly men, right? But if we're looking to actively seek people out, let's go find them where they are. Like, what is there an all-girls school somewhere? There's definitely all-women colleges. How do we, where are these women? How do we find them? How do we engage with them? And I think that takes work. And a lot of us haven't been willing to do the work. We just want to talk about it. This actually takes work. Like, we're not going to get new women to show up to a women event if they don't know that there's a women event. We need to actively go out and branch out. And I think that's how we tell the story of AV better, not just only to women, but to younger people, more diverse people. We need to meet them where they are.
Well, I think you really touched on that well. We tend to try to impact change later in life.
Yeah.
When it comes to women in tech, the push to get more young ladies into STEM. I think we've seen more of that in the last 10 years than we have in the last 50 in this country. But I think that's probably a huge part of it too, is really introducing everybody, but especially young girls into the STEM fields, giving them that opportunity to see what happens on the technology side of things. I know a lot of people, and even, I'm in my mid 40s now, technologies in some cases is starting to get intimidating to me because it's not as easy to use as it used to be when I was younger. And so I think that ability when people are young to latch on to good technology and really have it brighten their intriguing, ideas and create some future for them needs to be approached. And, as with anything, there's no quick, easy answer, but you're 100% right. We spend so much time talking about things. What are we actually doing in the industry? And that leads to a great question. As a man in the industry, what can I myself do? Because I only have the power that I have over myself, my thoughts, my ideas, and how I perceive and do things. So how can I help to get more women into STEM?
Well, one thing that I talked a lot about last year was basically we do these shows, right? ISE's coming up, Infocom's coming up, NAB, all these shows, and they're mostly men. There are women that work at these companies. Instead of you going, maybe say, hey, boss, send Allison, send Alicia, send somebody, right? But that doesn't happen. All the men get to go, all the salespeople, because traditionally in a sales role, it's men.
Right.
So we need active, active engagement, active voices behind us, because you don't think about it that way. You just realize you get to the show floor and it's all men.
Right.
Little things that we can do. Nominate somebody who doesn't go. She might be in project management. Yeah, she doesn't get to, or she might be a field technician. We love our field technicians. We know that they can't get away. They got to do the work. But maybe, I don't know, maybe swap it out every year. Give other people an opportunity to come to a show and build and put their names out there. That's just one simple thing that we could do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to approach that challenge with people. You know, I can talk to our CEO, of course, about it. But
Yeah.
you know, it's
It's an ongoing conversation.
Watching that, we'll talk about this and further this conversation in their own companies about making some of those changes. And I think it's a great idea. You know, we tend to think about just the people that need to be there, not necessarily the people that want to be there or would really benefit from being at these trade shows, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And from a STEM perspective, like I love STEM, it's all great. But those STEM kind of courses and groups, they're teaching them other forms of technology that they can use in AV. Let's reach out to those STEM groups and say, hey, you just program this? Why don't you come over here and program this? What do you think about programming an immersive experience? Right? But they don't know that in STEM that they can program an immersive experience.
Right.
So it's twofold, man.
Kind of speaking of that, we actually have a comment from Chris, and he said, I believe if our industry offered a trade school like IBEW, women would be more interested and it would be easier to enter the field. Do you have a take on that?
In theory, I went to trade school, right? But I had to get online, Google audio engineering trade schools, and I didn't even know this exists until I went to a church and applied for the front of house when I moved down to Texas from Connecticut. I was like, yeah, I've been doing this forever. They're going to give me a job. I walk up, I sit in service. I enjoy it. I go to the back and I say, hey, how do I volunteer on your team? He said, well, have you gone to school? And I was just asking to volunteer.
Wow.
And I said, school? What are you talking about, school? And then I went home. I Googled it. And at that time, it was Full Sail. There was Art Institute, and there was a school right in my backyard called Media Tech Institute. So, hey, I went where my pockets could fund at the moment, and then I built from there. But if we created a trade program, we would still have the issue of how do we know that it exists?
Right.
So I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I love and more things, ways to get involved in time. But if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
You still have to go and actively meet them where they are, We would still have to go and actively meet them where they are and say, hey, we got a trade school.
Right. So
it's
still reaching it's reaching the audience that we need to do. And that audience is something that we need to target.
Because we've got the education, right? We have CTS, there are trade schools out there. We've got Dante certifications. That's right. Dante certifications and some of this stuff is free. But if you don't know what AV is, how are you going to know about any of it? How do you know you need those certifications?
Right.
Well, you're definitely doing a good job of getting some information out there and encouraging people over to the AV world for sure.
I'm trying, Matthew. I'm trying to do some cool, creative ways to put the story of not just what I'm doing personally in this field, but the story of AV, so other people could come over here and say, hey, man, you could get a good job, get some health care, make your mama proud, and live a pretty decent life, So that was my original purpose outside of creating content to build my career, was to show other people where I'm from and other women that we can be a part of this as well.
I think you're doing a great job at it, Alesia.
Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate you.
Since the key it seems like the key is definitely for you has been embracing yourself and everything. Is that what you would say is the key to being confident and successful in a male-dominated field like the AV industry?
Absolutely. Once you get comfortable with yourself, you're comfortable in any room. And that like my personal growth is very much aligned with my career growth as well, because I haven't always been here. My first presentation was crap. Trust me, I never want to go back to that moment ever again. It was the worst moment. I still remember it, shaking, like 3 people in a room, and it was horrible. But you build yourself up to that. So if you constantly stay in the fear, then you'll never grow. And that's why I said it aligns a lot with personal growth as well as your career growth. So it's hard because it's hard working on yourself. It's hard to try out, it's hard enough going out and getting a job, but it's harder working on yourself.
It's easy to look at the things. What could I do that's field related that would make me a better person in the field? And it's a lot harder to be like, what can I do to make myself a better person?
Yeah, exactly. But it aligns. Yeah.
I just had a question, and now it just flew out of my head.
Bring it back.
I'm going to have to, but since I can't think of it right now, we'll just move on to the next one. What would be your advice for women or young people that are looking to get into the industry?
It's back to education, right? Google is the best tool that I've ever had. And I grew up in the age of where I had a computer at my fingertips, right? Like every day, all day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still the best and most powerful resource you can have outside of a book, right? But if you don't, so start Googling certifications, right? If you don't have a degree, you need to get your certifications. You need to get behind a trade school because this industry still has a lot of barriers. And trust me, you want to come in with some kind of something in your arsenal to back it up. And while you're doing that, you need to have the social proof, right? LinkedIn is dope, man. I'm trying to tell people, everybody's been running away from LinkedIn for years. Oh, they only use it when, they need to find a new job. But it's more than just, putting your resume on LinkedIn. Actively engage with those people. Then next thing you know, you're at an event with them. And next thing you know, 6 years later, you got a job with somebody you met on LinkedIn. That's how it happened for me. At my old company, Access Network, shout out to her guy. We linked on Twitter. I knew him for a long time. I went out to a CEDIA event, met him in person. 6 years later, I ended up working at his company. Same thing with Audinate. I was at a AVIT summit in New York. That was the first time I met my boss, and that was 5 years ago. You have to work the steps. Just be who you are in person, the same person you are online, right? It's a balance. So definitely just build up your arsenal and use those social tools and social platforms to help put yourself out there. Because the more you have to introduce yourself, the more opportunities that come.
Absolutely. When's your book coming out?
Book? Oh, man, I don't know. I'm not writing a book. Maybe
Not
I
yet,
should.
anyways.
Not yet. Maybe.
Yeah, so it sounds like you would say that social media and trade show networking is pretty important.
Hand in hand. And if you can't make it to the bigger shows, find out which regional events are close to you, right? Like I said, I wasn't in residential, but CEDIA at the time I lived in Houston was in Dallas. So I just got in the car and went. I took a day off, right? Took my vacation day, made sure I still got paid, hopped in the car and went to the event. Like there's regional things as well that can help you just as much until you are in a financial position to get to the larger shows, because there is some money that has to be invested into it, and that's okay. Work the steps. That's what I did. Yeah, exactly. That's what I did. My first InfoComm, I took vacation time. Then I used my money that I had, my paycheck, to go to InfoComm, work the show floor, and I did that for 2-3 years straight. Like, honestly, this last InfoComm was the first time that I didn't fund it myself. So there's, you got to work the steps. This wasn't something that happened overnight, even though it kind of seems like it when people see me on social. But man, rise and grind, I've been tweeting that for years. and I mean it. It started off with me saying it to myself because I knew where I wanted to get. And honestly, working those steps, it is a grind sometimes, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, you've been funding a lot of this yourself. And I think that's kind of one thing that a lot of people don't really think about when it comes to getting into this industry is not necessarily just events, but equipment, other stuff. There's a lot of personal investment that can have to go into it.
Huge investment.
But, I think it's a huge payoff when you really think about it.
When you invest in yourself, then other people start to invest in you, and then it's a vortex of actually making money, making profit. But if you don't invest in yourself, nobody else will.
Right, 100%.
All right. Well, we're coming up on about 40 minutes here. We've been live for about 40 minutes. It's been a really great conversation. Do you have any questions for us? I don't want to keep you too long.
Questions, yes. Do you all have any women that work at your company?
We do. I believe we're coming up on 3 here, Matthew.
Yes, we just hired our 3rd.
All right.
Like 12 employees? Something like that. Yeah, we're
looking to add.
So.
All right, so that you said that's 3 women? 3 women?
3 women.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so is one going to ISE? Is one going to NAB? Is one going to InfoComm? Like, what's up?
As far as I know, no.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I appreciate that. It's on the spot sometimes. Not a decision that I get to make.
Yep.
And quite frankly, I never considered the perspective that you gave me earlier. When it comes to, sending people to the show and who choose to go to the show, the standards make sense, the salespeople, the CEOs, things like that. But bringing along, people that are part of the business that need to see what's going on at these shows and understand things a little bit better is a great point. I don't
but there's
have
steps too.
the women here to to Barcelona, but maybe it's something that can be put into the works because it
There's
is.
steps
I
too.
perfectly agree with
Maybe
you.
they could just be on the show. Like I'm saying a grand scheme of things, right? Let's see him at a show, add to that percentage for the major shows. But you guys have your own show right now, right here. Let's put them in some YouTube videos. Let's do some lives. How did they get their starts? Like, help them tell their stories.
It's a good idea.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always looking for more content. So,
sure.
And tell them to add me on LinkedIn so they could be on my podcast too.
There you go. Okay, I'll make sure that we do that.
I think Rosemary might be up for that.
We got to get you out to Sacramento at some point so we can have these conversations in person and
I gotta come hang out.
what we have here.
Sounds good, man.
Did you have any other questions?
I'm good.
There, Alesia.
Yeah, I just had to put you on the spot real quick, but other than that, I'm good.
It's all good.
Unless you guys are gonna tell me,
and you're definitely one of my favorites so far. You bring a lot to the table, and I love your insight and getting opportunities to do things like this because as men, it is all too often we're not thinking about the other side of that coin. It's just not something that's a prevalent thought process to most of us because it's not something we have to deal with. Whereas it's something that I'm sure you deal with almost every single day. So it's nice to get a reminder. Nice, maybe not the right word, but it's good to get a reminder every once in a while to refocus on some of these things that are going on in the industry and what we can do to better them.
Yeah, I mean the way I walk into any room in the industry now is okay. I sit back and I look at the room, and I say, "Am I the only woman here? Am I the only person of color here?" And I don't think that happens enough, right? Where it's just an unconscious bias or unconscious things that have been happening in this space for so long. But if we ask ourselves those little things, then I don't know. Maybe next time you'll bring your female colleagues with you to an event. Or, small things that we can just change if we change our mindsets just a little bit.
100%. I'll do my best.
I'm gonna hold you to it, Matthew.
Good to have food for thought.
I give you my word. You always get my best.
I appreciate that. You know what? And I do have another question before we wrap up. Sure. Can you guys tell me what you're showing at ISE?
Matt, can we tell what we're showing at ISE?
Can you give me a little nugget?
I don't think I'm the right authority on that, but I think we do have something on the table next to you.
How about we say some new cameras?
Okay.
Some new resolutions.
All right.
If I could say that. I'm trying to be as
trying to be discreet.
I don't want to get ripped after I get out of this.
Well, Matthew, what do you got on the table next to you?
Oh yeah. We got that's the Dante. You gonna show that up there, Flo? There's our Dante AV.
Yes.
Almo 4K, the 6-time award-winning Almo 4K camera. We'll have the Dante AV. Yeah, we've got a lot of things that are coming out this year that we're doing, that we're changing, and just doing our best to to be that one-stop shop. Whether you want to talk to a man or a woman, we want to make sure that we're the call that people are making.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of really exciting things happening at ISE, and I wish I could just, but I would get myself in a lot of trouble.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
That was a great view right there, too.
It was perfect. It was perfect. You guys do this without even trying. I love it.
We also have one last comment. Alesia, it's from Larry Drum. Alesia needs to be on a board at Avixa to help them promote women in the industry. Her voice and energy would be a huge impact. I would have to agree with that statement.
My man. Larry, I met him at my first ever AV event in Dallas at an E4. And he's been a huge encouragement to me and other women in this space for many, many years. Larry, shout out to you, man. I love you. I will do my best to keep, doing what I'm doing. I don't know about a board though. You want to put me on a board? I don't know about that.
Who knows? It might be a good way to get some change going.
Maybe.
Well,
There's a will, there's a way.
We're coming up on 45 minutes here. I think I'm going to go ahead and end up cutting this off just a little bit. We don't want to have this run on too long, but we really appreciate you coming on, Alesia. It was fantastic talking to you. A lot of really good talking points and things for us to think about, and especially the whole AV industry as a whole. So again, thank you. And
thank you guys.
We hope maybe to have you on again at some point.
I'm game. Anytime. Just let me know. Shout out to Drayvon.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me, Matthew. And thank you all for tuning in to this live stream. And we'll see you guys next time for another fantastic live stream in the new year.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody.